Hello everyone and welcome back to the Chris Talks Football Podcast. This is episode number 34, the penultimate episode of the 2019-20 football calendar season. And today we're going to be looking at Matchday number 37 in the Premier League. We have a lot to talk about, not just in the Premier League, but in the Football League as well, in the Championship of course, because it was the final day yesterday in the Championship last night. We saw promotion stories and we saw hard relegation stories, so we'll talk about that as well. We'll also talk about the top four race in the Premier League, as that's starting to hot up now, and we'll also talk about the relegation race in the Premier League, as of course on Sunday it will be the final match day of the Premier League. We've also got a little announcement to make at the end as to how I'm going to do my final episode of the podcast on Sunday, so hopefully we're in with a good shout. But let's start off with the Premier League. And last night, of course, those of you who did see the Liverpool-Chelsea game, and those who obviously stayed up a little bit after the end of the match, saw Liverpool's title celebrations, because they got to lift their first Premier League trophy in 30 years. They obviously had a little ceremony made at Anfield. There were a lot of fans outside Anfield, and it was a pretty good ceremony. There was fireworks and everything. But yeah, Liverpool lifted the trophy for the very first time. They all got their winners' medals, and this was after a 5-3 thriller at Anfield. Goals from Trent Alexander-Arnold, a free kick. We had Roberto Firmino score his first goal at home at Anfield in the Premier League. We had Naby Keita score an absolute thunderbolt into the top corner. Chelsea, though, did score themselves. They had the likes of Christian Pulisic and Tammy Abraham scoring for them. And it was a very highly contested game. And, the fact that obviously Liverpool conceded 3 goals at home may annoy Jurgen Klopp, but I don't think that's really in his mind, especially after he celebrated with about 30-odd players winning the Premier League title. And that's obviously what the whole day was about, obviously winning the Premier League. So hopefully, Liverpool scoring 5 goals as well. That's very, very new at Anfield. I don't think I've seen them score 5 goals for a little while at Anfield. But, obviously it doesn't really matter about the result in the end, because obviously Liverpool are champions. Chelsea, though, let's focus on them a little bit, because if we look at the table, Chelsea obviously are still in the race for top 4. They've got 63 points, which is the same as Manchester United, who we'll talk about as well. 63 points. They've got a significantly worse goal difference, though, than both Manchester United and Leicester. So I think if they're to get top 4, they're 1 point in front of Leicester, who we're going to talk about. But I think to get top 4, they have on the final day Wolves at home. And of course, Wolves are still battling for an outside chance at 5th. But obviously they still need to get Europa League football, because of course they're 6th place. They've got 4 less victories than Chelsea Wolves. But Chelsea, I think, if they get a point out of Wolves, and Manchester United, who do play Leicester on the final day, if Manchester United draw against Leicester and Chelsea don't lose against Wolves, then Chelsea and Manchester United will be in the top 4. Let's now talk about United, because United were playing at home to West Ham, obviously off the back of the really shocking display at Wembley, 3-1 defeat to Chelsea, meaning their chance for silverware has gone in the FA Cup. They're still in the Europa League. Obviously they're playing their fixtures in August, but they obviously hosted West Ham at home. West Ham only needed 1 more point to be mathematically safe. They were pretty much 99% safe coming to Old Trafford, and that's what they did. They defended well, and Mikel Antonio, of course, banging form. I believe that's now 8 goals in 6 games, his last 6 games, so he's one of the form players post-lockdown. But West Ham getting that point that they needed to mathematically secure their status in the top flight next season. And it was a pretty decent game. I mean, West Ham did have chances to win it, but I think on the whole, Manchester United probably will settle for the points, and will probably go to Leicester, who we'll talk about now, and try and maybe even go for the win. But I think obviously, as I've just said, a point for United at home to Leicester, away to Leicester rather, will be enough for them to secure Champions League football after a season out in Europe. And I think that will be a salvageable season for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, considering the start he had to the season. They were in mid-table, I think, up until almost this Christmas. And, you know, they had to salvage their season quite a lot. But I think since obviously Bruno's come in, he's added a little bit of flair, a little bit of creativity to the team. And, of course, now they're going to salvage Champions League. They might even still get third place, which if you told any Manchester United fan at the start of the season, that would never have happened. Third place for United would never have happened at the start of the season. They're in third place now. All they need is a point or so, and they will be in third. That's obviously providing Chelsea do not win against Wolves. But for Leicester, what is going on for them? Post-lockdown, they look like a completely different team, obviously. They do have a game at home to United, and obviously Leicester are pretty good at home. So hopefully maybe that could be a banker for them. Maybe Leicester could obviously try and set up to go for the win. But Leicester, their Champions League hopes were dealt a big blow at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium as they went and lost 3-0 to Spurs. Harry Kane getting, I believe, a couple of goals. And yeah, I think he's now got over 200 goals for the club. Harry Kane, one of the top scorers in the league. But for Leicester, they did have a few chances. Damari Gray and I believe James Maddison having a few. James Maddison is actually out injured. I don't know what I'm saying there, but still, Leicester, I think now they're slumping form. They have to go all out against Manchester United. Luckily, of course, they did win against Sheffield United in their last home game, Leicester. So their home advantage could serve them well. Of course, if they do get a point, Leicester, it won't be enough. Provided Chelsea lose, then obviously they'll get Champions League football, because of course Wolves still need to solidify their status. They've got Spurs now coming right up behind them now for this win. Spurs obviously can't really finish any higher than 6th. Wolves can't finish any higher than 6th as well. So it'll be a battle between Spurs and Wolves for the final place in Europe. But for Leicester, you know, they're once good defence. I mean, they've still got a pretty solid defence. They've only conceded 39 goals. But, I mean, when you look at the likes of the teams around them, you know, Manchester United now even have a better defence than them. Manchester City as well. And you think how badly those two were playing. Well, you think how below average, rather, those two were playing at the start of the season. You wouldn't have thought it, but of course Leicester, with the injuries to the likes of Ben Chilwell and Ricardo Pereira, James Maddison being out as well, it's affected them most. But I think it just shows the strength that Brendan Rodgers does have in his Leicester squad to go to Sheffield United. They were at home the last match they played before Spurs. They went to Sheffield United and they got a win. I think if they put in the same performance then, and if they can get Vardy, you know, up and running and scoring in that game, because obviously he's in line for the Golden Boot, then I think Leicester could potentially get a really, really handy victory, because of course Leicester have lost one fewer game than Chelsea, but 3 more games than Manchester United. So that's the only thing that might be buggering them coming and hosting United at the King Power Stadium in the last day of the season. But now it is time to talk about Spurs' 3-0 win against Leicester City. And of course, as I said, 6th is the highest place they can finish. Now Spurs on the final day, this is a bit of a predicament, because while Wolves do have Chelsea, Spurs on the final day are away to Crystal Palace. And Crystal Palace have, I believe, lost 6 in a row. They've lost 6 in a row, so it's not a very good end of season for them. Of course, they're not really fighting for anything after they solidified their status as a Premier League club a couple of match days ago. But, I don't know, Spurs do have a chance of getting into 6th place, which will be a pretty salvageable season. I think Jose Mourinho next season is probably one to watch out for. I do back Mourinho to maybe win a trophy next season, the FL Cup, FA Cup, maybe even the Europa League, which they're going to enter in. I think Europa League, if they do go and qualify for the Europa League in the final day, I think that their priority is to win the Europa League. I don't think anything less than a final appearance would be satisfactory for Jose and for Daniel Levy, who of course is the owner. So yeah, if they want to avoid letting a very good manager slip outside their hands, they're going to have to perform well, give him the funds and give him the money. But for Spurs, of course, 3-0 win against Leicester. Clean sheet at home, which is very good. Their goal difference is now improved, meaning they have a better goal difference than Wolves. So if Tottenham draw away to Crystal Palace and Wolves lose, Tottenham go into 6th. So that's how important 3 goals was against Leicester as well, because their goal difference is improved. They've got 1+ more goal difference than Wolves. So hopefully that means for them, Jose Mourinho can of course set up in his normal, usual defensive style that he has, not as defensive as the likes of Diego Simeone at Atletico Madrid. But of course, on the counter-attack, we've seen Spurs very recently been very good on the counter-attack against Manchester United, post-lockdown. Obviously against Leicester City, they've been very good on the counter. And of course, against Bournemouth, they were pretty solid on the counter-attack. Didn't really manage to do stuff, though, as Bournemouth defended well in their game that they played at the Vitality Stadium. But yeah, with Spurs' attack, I think that they could win against Palace. I really do. And I think Chelsea will at least draw against Wolves. I don't see them losing. I think if Nuno Espirito Santo sets them up right, I don't see Chelsea getting any more than a point. But of course, Wolves, a point is all they need if Tottenham lose. So there's many implications to this. But of course, Crystal Palace are in 14th now. They won't finish any higher than 14th. Newcastle United 3 points above them in the table. But 14th. But has it been a good season for Palace? I think it's been an average season. I think Wilfried Zaha hasn't particularly been at his best. Obviously, Crystal Palace lost to Wolves, but Zaha hasn't been at his best. But I think he's still a very good player. Will he be off next summer? I don't know. Arsenal and Everton still pursuing his signature, but I think his value is not at 70 million. I do believe his value is around about the 50 million mark. Same as Richarlison. But yeah, for Palace, I think that they've just taken the foot off the gas, especially since they secured Premier League status. So it is what it is. But yeah, you can't really blame them for that. But what will Roy Hodgson do? They've got the worst attack in the Premier League. The second worst attack, rather, in the Premier League. 30 goals. 49 goals conceded. In essence, that's only 3 more goals than Spurs and only 1 more goal than Burnley. Defensively, considering, their teams around them, they've got the best goal difference out of Southampton, Newcastle, West Ham, Brighton and Villa. Defensively, you could say it's a pretty solid season. They've conceded less than 1.5 goals a game. So that's pretty good to tell. That's pretty good reading for Roy Hodgson, especially next season. But I think against Spurs, my prediction will be 2-0 defeat for Palace. Chelsea and Wolves, I think Chelsea will edge it, but only just. I think it'll be 2-1 to Chelsea. Leicester City against Man United. I do back Leicester. I think they've been in good form at home particularly. But I think I'm going to go for a 0-0 draw at the King Power. So, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. The rest of the fixtures, we've got Arsenal hosting Watford. Now, Arsenal obviously lost to Aston Villa on Tuesday. It was a big win for Aston Villa because, of course, with their goal difference, that means they now climb out of the relegation zone on the final day. They do have, obviously, Aston Villa, West Ham away. Their away form is absolutely tragic. I think Manchester United away is the only away performance they did well at. They did their best. But this is going to be tight because Aston Villa have 1 more victory than Watford and Bournemouth. Bournemouth are still in this relegation fight. In essence, it all comes down to goal difference. Will I think Aston Villa beat West Ham? No. I think West Ham will comfortably beat Aston Villa. I think West Ham will do them 3-0. Considering, the fact that they've just gone to Old Trafford and got a point. They've played very well at Old Trafford. They did very well. There were a lot of positives. They've played with a lot of freedom, as we saw at Old Trafford. They were able to create chances. I think it'll be a 3-0 victory for West Ham, meaning West Ham will be on 41 points. Considering where they were when they sacked Pellegrini, I think that's a very salvageable season for West Ham. I thought, obviously, with David Moyes coming in with his experience, I thought they'd get around 40 points. So, yeah, a decent season. Obviously, with the relegation scare they had, particularly given their start to the season. But yeah, West Ham have had a below average, but still a decent season for them, especially when you think about what the job Moyes has done. But West Ham will beat Aston Villa. But a goal difference again. We'll go to the table. Goal difference, Aston Villa have scored more goals than Watford and Bournemouth. but they've conceded more goals than Watford and Bournemouth. Their goal difference is at minus 26, Aston Villa. They're on 34 points. Watford, who lost 4-0 to Manchester City, they weren't really in the game. Raheem Sterling with scoring the pick of the bunch. It was a 4-0 victory for City. Raheem Sterling scoring a penalty and an absolute cracker past Ben Foster. We'll talk about Watford and their recent managerial change. But going back to Aston Villa, minus 26 their goal difference. Watford are now minus 27 along with Bournemouth. Bournemouth are away to Everton. Do I think they'll win that game? I think they have a pretty good chance of getting a point. I think if Bournemouth, their home form is really what's trying to keep them up this season. They've drawn at home to Chelsea this season. They've won against Manchester United this season. Yeah, they've won against Chelsea away from home as well. But I can't see Everton losing against Bournemouth. I really can't. I think, even if Everton, don't play particularly well. And to be fair to them, they haven't really been playing particularly well. Obviously, Everton did beat Sheffield United on the start of the week, meaning that Sheffield United have nothing to play for. They will be in 8th place. That's the minimum they can finish. 10th is obviously the maximum they can finish, because of course Arsenal and Burnley still fighting for 8th place. They're out of the Europe as well. Arsenal with that defeat against Aston Villa, they did look a little bit lethargic against Villa, but Trezeguet scored against Arsenal. He's had a pretty good season, Trezeguet. 7 goals now this season in the Premier League. But I don't think Bournemouth, going back to them, I don't think Bournemouth will get a victory against Everton. I think that could be the nail in the coffin. And this was after a 2-0 home defeat to Southampton. Che Adams scoring a second Premier League goal in his career. Danny Ings now has got over 20 goals in the Premier League season. He's 3 goals behind Jamie Vardy. Now Southampton are home to Sheffield United, who of course have nothing to play for. If Danny Ings can get a hat-trick at home, he will really run Jamie Vardy close for the Golden Boot. And who saw at the start of the season Danny Ings winning the Golden Boot? I certainly didn't. I thought Danny Ings would get into double figures, considering he had an okay season last season. But I did not see him getting 20 goals this season. And Danny Ings has just been on flames this season. And Gareth Southgate, I urge you, if he continues to do the same next season, get him in that England squad. He's hungry, just like Harry Kane. He's a goal scorer now. He's coming of age. He's coming of age, Danny Ings. But for Bournemouth, I think it's over, I think it is over. And it's really sad, because I don't want to see Bournemouth go down, because they're such a, they're an underdog, and you don't really want to see an underdog, fail or not win or anything. Because of course it gives you that feeling that, gives you that feeling of happiness that a little club like Bournemouth, who were almost spunked up a tree 12 years ago, are in the Premier League. But, if Bournemouth do go down, Eddie Howe will stay. I think he does have a little bit of loyalty for the Cherries, considering, of course, they gave him his first managerial job. But, yeah, I do feel sad for Bournemouth. Watford, though, and we're going to talk about them, because they sacked Nigel Pearson on Monday. And who saw that coming? Not me. No one. The Pozzo family, man, who run Watford, they remind me of an Italian mafia. And it's a bit like, you've done something wrong, you lost against West Ham, you're out of the door. That's not how football management works. Football management is the long game, not the short game. I don't think the Pozzers are keeping in touch with reality here. Obviously, they know how to run a football club. They've gotten promotion from the Championship, and they've got to an FA Cup final. So they know how to run a football club. But in terms of man management, my goodness me, I think a 2-year-old toddler can manage a football club better than the Pozzos. Because how are you going to sack Nigel Pearson? When he came in, they weren't even at double figures in points. They had 8 points when Nigel Pearson came in. He's come in. He's got 26 points out of 23 games. He's got a ratio of more than 1 point a game. That is a decent ratio for Watford, who are struggling in the Premier League for survival. How are the Pozzos going to sack him, give the last 2 matches of the season to Manchester City and Arsenal, no less, to a guy who I've never seen coach in the Premier League before. And Graham Stack, all I know is he used to be a goalkeeper, and that's it. I mean, that it's just such a wrong move for the Pozzers, and they've only themselves to blame if they go down. And, you know, I'm not saying that the Pozzers are a bunch of useless owners. I'm not saying that they're like West Ham's owners, but they're okay owners. They've got them promotion to the top flight. They've got them to an FA Cup final, but at what cost? Football management is a long-term game, okay? Nigel Pearson was supposed to go in, steady the ship, take them forward next season or the season after, because Watford have a damn good squad. Look at their squad. Doucouré, brilliant player. He had interest from PSG a season or two ago. Troy Deeney is the leader. He's one of the best leaders in the Premier League. He's a brilliant captain, a great striker, and a great, you know, hold-up captain, team player type of striker. He's a very good player. Look at the likes of their midfield. They've got obviously some young players coming through, and obviously their back line, their goalkeeper. They've got some good players in there. Craig Dawson is an experienced Premier League defender. He's played for Spurs. He's played for Hull, I believe. Obviously, Ben Foster used to play for Manchester United, West Brom. He's been really good this season. He made a couple of key saves against Manchester City, and he's 38 years of age, I believe. So, you know, the fact that Nigel Pearson is not going to keep this up. Now that Watford have sacked their manager, I think the bottom three who are there, I think that's it now. Norwich, obviously we know where they're down. They lost to Burnley 2-0 on Saturday. They went down to 9 men as well. They had Josip Drmic sent off for a really bad challenge. But it's just embarrassing, really. But the one thing is that, you know, when Norwich are down to 10 men, I don't know why you would get yourself sent off, Josip Drmic. He hasn't really been very good this season, but go back to my opinion on Nigel Pearson. He can keep teams up. He is a Sam Allardyce, a better version though, because of course Sam Allardyce's brand of football, especially at Everton, well, let's just say I could have stuck 10-year-old children on the pitch and they'd play a better brand of football. So yeah, but still, like, I can't believe how out of touch reality the Potter family are. As I've said again, when you're in this situation, you're battling against relegation, you need a cool head. Nigel Pearson is a cool head, okay? He's done it before with Leicester. He's built the foundations of a winning squad. Look at that Leicester 14-15 season. Look at even their 13-14 season when they went up. Look at the players they had there. Look how good those players, almost all of them, have turned out to be. You know? He lays the foundations for a good squad. And obviously you could say that, but, you know, they want to get it done early and quickly. But no, let Pearson finish the season. It's 2 matches. Let Pearson finish the season. He will build the team morale. He will build the foundations for that squad. Okay? They bought in João Pedro. I'm not sure if they bought in anyone else. But, again, it's just 3 managers. 3 managers sacked in one season. You cannot do that for a Premier League side. If Watford stay up, then Nigel Pearson will be fuming, especially after his £1 million bonus. He's not going to claim it now, so that's a bit of another L that Nigel Pearson has to take. But I don't know. Will Villa stay up? I kind of hope they do now, Villa. I mean, obviously I said that they'd go down because of the money they spent on absolute tosh, but Trezeguet's been a good signing. But you have to say Villa are like Leeds. They're a sleeping giant. You know, they've won the European Cup in the 80s. So I think Villa in the Premier League for a second season would be pretty good, especially when you look at now the teams who are going up, because we are going to have a good Premier League season next season. I can tell you that now. The rest of the results in the Premier League, we had obviously Brighton secure their Premier League status by a absolutely boring 0-0 draw at Newcastle. I could have watched a penguin I don't know why I'm going with this analogy. I could watch a penguin give birth, and that would be more fun than watching Brighton versus Newcastle. And obviously, I said Norwich lost to Burnley as well. Wolverhampton Wanderers beat Crystal Palace at home by 2-0. Daniel Podence getting his first Premier League goal for Wolves. He looks like a pretty decent signing. Podence, the Portuguese, 5'5". So yeah, he's a tricky little wide player. So maybe he could be a good player next season. Could chip in with a few assists here and there. So all of the fixtures on the final day. Arsenal versus Watford. Arsenal have none to play for. Watford, of course, do have survival. Burnley against Brighton, nothing to play for. Chelsea against Wolves, top 4 for Chelsea. Europa League for Wolves. Crystal Palace against Spurs, nothing to play for Palace. But for Spurs, of course, they still have a chance of European football. Everton and Bournemouth. Everton have nothing to play for. Bournemouth need to win, and they need to hope Villa and Watford lose. Because if they do, that's the goal difference for you, because Bournemouth have only got one less. Leicester City, of course, and Manchester United playing for top 4. If that ends in a draw, it's good for United, because that means they qualify for Champions League. Manchester City will absolutely pummel Norwich City, because Norwich City, well, they're dead and buried, are they? They're not going to repeat the 3-2 victory. Newcastle against Liverpool, I think that could be a good game, because Newcastle, of course, is playing for a decent points tally under Steve Bruce, especially for the people who doubted him at the start of the season. And Liverpool Premier League champions, and they will be absolutely high on joy knowing the fact that they've got a winner's medal in their cabinet. Southampton against Sheffield United, nothing to play for. West Ham against Aston Villa, of course. Aston Villa playing for a shot at Premier League safety. I think West Ham will win that game, though. But it's now time to turn our attention to something almost more important than the final day of relegation. And that was the Championship, because all 46 games are played. Leeds United have been given the trophy. It was a momentous moment for them. 93 points. They've won over half of their games. Brilliant job by Marcelo Bielsa. I cannot wait to see how he gets on in the Premier League, what business he'll do in the transfer window. A big plus for Leeds, of course. Very recently they've announced that their on-loan Manchester City winger Jack Harrison will stay for them. And Jack Harrison, especially against Arsenal in the FA Cup, performed pretty well. So I think that's a decent move from Leeds to get him on loan for another season. But everything was to play for the Championship final day at 7:30. We had automatic promotion between West Brom, Brentford and Fulham. We had playoffs between Cardiff, Swansea and Nottingham Forest. And we had relegation to play for with Huddersfield, Luton, Birmingham, Barnsley, Charlton, Wigan and Hull. So, these are the results for the Championship games. Birmingham City were on 50 points. They had a slight chance of getting relegated. They only needed a point to stay up, and hope that obviously Barnsley and Charlton both win. Birmingham City lost to Derby County, meaning Derby County secure a top 10 finish. Not the playoffs though, so Derby fans will be disappointed about that, because of course they have a pretty decent squad, obviously with the addition of Wayne Rooney in January. But Birmingham City have stayed up. The bad news is though, they've lost their teenage talent Jude Bellingham. £30 million for a 17-year-old. Come on, mate. But to be fair, Borussia Dortmund have paid £40 million for 2 teenage talents that they can make 3 times as much money as 40 million in a couple of seasons' time. It's mad how Dortmund get these cheap bargains. But with Birmingham City losing, Barnsley and Charlton have to win for Birmingham City to go down. Barnsley beats Brentford by 2-1. Yes, you heard that right. Brentford, who had a very good chance of getting into the Premier League, lost their last 2 games away to Stoke and at home to Barnsley, meaning Brentford miss out on automatic promotion by 2 points. They go into the playoffs, but who will Brentford face in the playoffs? It's a Welsh side, but it's not going to be Cardiff City, because Swansea City thrashed Reading on the final day 4-1. Nottingham Forest who were third and 6 points ahead of Swansea at one point in the table, got absolutely rammed 4-1 by Stoke City, meaning Nottingham Forest, by 1 goal, miss out on the top 6. Nottingham Forest will be a Championship club next season, and I'm so disappointed in them because I really thought Nottingham Forest had a good chance, especially 1 month ago. They were cruising. They were, I believe, in 4th or 5th. They were doing really well, but the poor run of form has meant that they lose out on a playoff spot, and that's hard on Sabri Lamouchi. I think he's done a really good job at Forest, but Nottingham Forest fans will not be happy about that. James McLean scoring the goal that ultimately can find Forest to another season in the Championship. They've got such a good squad, Forest, as well. Look at the goals that Lewis Graben has scored. Matty Cash as well in defence. The likes of Joe Wall, who's been searched for by Premier League clubs. Bryce Samba, who in my opinion could be one of the best goalkeepers in the Championship. Yeah, it's so unlucky as well because Nottingham Forest have a good squad. Fulham, they drew their final game of the season away to Wigan Athletic, meaning that Fulham will contest the playoffs and they will contest against Cardiff. And who do I think will win the playoffs? Brentford do have Swansea. I mean, Ian Brewster's been in fine form for Swansea, but I don't know if he's going to be with them in the playoffs. I think Brentford will be in the final. I think they'll beat Swansea. I think we'll have an all-London final in the playoffs. Brentford versus Fulham. Who do I think will go up though? Now Fulham, look at their record in the playoffs. They, obviously the last time where they contested a playoff final, they won against Aston Villa by 1-0. That was in 2018. They can do it again. Scott Parker, though, of course, hasn't really felt the pressure or the looming idea of a playoff final. Scott Parker's done a pretty good job this season. Thomas Frank has done an outstanding job, though. Brentford have the second best defence in the league. They've conceded 10 less goals than Fulham. I back Brentford. I back Brentford to go into the Premier League. And what a coincidence as well with the new stadium that they'll play in next season. Leeds United, Brentford, West Brom will be my 3. I think that will go up now. West Brom securing promotion after a 2-2 draw at home to Queen's Park Rangers. Of course, Fulham drew with Wigan and Brentford lost against Barnsley. Let's now talk about Barnsley. They have done the Great Escape. 50%, because they obviously beat Brentford on the final day. The Tykes have a decent squad. They've got a good few players in the likes of Connor Chaplin. Who else have they got? I believe Alex Mowat. Decent players for Barnsley. Callum Stiles has been in form for Barnsley, of course. He had a decent game against Leeds last time. But Barnsley are up. But, of course, they need Wigan. They need Wigan's lawyers essentially to fail because, of course, Wigan drew against Fulham, meaning they were on 59 points. But because of the 12-point deduction as a result of going into administration, Wigan Athletic will play League One football for the first time since 2017. And I don't know. Will they make the appeal? I think Wigan deserve to be a Championship club. Paul Cook has done an immense job. They were 13th before the 12-point deduction. They were mid-table. Wigan Athletic, mid-table. They just smashed 8-0 against Hull City, which we'll talk about now, Hull City. But I think Wigan deserve to be in the Champions League next season, for me. They've got positive goal difference, 15 wins. To put that into context, they've got the same wins as Reading in 14th. Unbelievable. Unbelievable what COVID-19 has done to Wigan, but we can't really change anything. Hopefully Wigan's lawyers can, because I do want to see Wigan in the Championship. I want to see Barnsley as well, but I think Wigan have been wrongfully relegated this season. It really is not down to internal factors, which is the reason why they're in administration. It's down to external factors that they cannot control. The fact that there's been no football for 3 or 4 months. The fact that obviously the stadiums are empty, so they can't, get their ticket sales from gate receipts. So yeah, of course, it could get worse. Clubs in the Football League, of course, could have similar problems in the future to Wigan. But Barnsley stay up, Birmingham City stay up. Luton Town, 2 games ago, were on 45 points. They were in 23rd. They have now since won against Blackburn, won against, I believe, Huddersfield, and that means they have stayed up. And I could not be happier for Luton Town. I could not be happier, because Luton Town are a decent little team. They've got some good players in Isaac and Panzu, you know, the likes of Izzy Brown, James Collins, Cameron Carter-Vickers on loan from Spurs. Simon Slug has been a decent goalkeeper for them. I think Luton have deserved their stay in the Championship. Charlton Athletic, though, with their 4-0 defeat to Leeds, go straight back down to League One. And it is harsh on them, especially when you think of the season, the start of the season they had as well. They were in the playoffs up until match day number 11. They had good performances from the likes of Conor Gallagher, Sarr. They had Macaulay Bondsman firing in the goals in the second half of the season. Obviously, Lyle Taylor's not going to be there at Charlton next season, the former Wimbledon striker. I'm a decent fan of Lyle Taylor. I think he's a very good Championship striker. But yeah, Charlton join Wigan / Barnsley and Hull City, who were relegated. Hull City lost 3-0 away to Cardiff City. Of course, Cardiff secured their status in the playoffs. But Hull City, what has happened to them? Especially Jared Bowen was in the Hull City team in January. They were mid-table. Since then, only 6 points taken. Unbelievable. How much Jared Bowen was carrying the team. And it just shows you that £20 million that West Ham have bought for him, it's a class deal. It is a very class deal. Hats off to the transfer people at West Ham who are working to get Jared Bowen into the club, because they've done a right decision and they've pissed off every single Hull City fan. But I don't think West Ham care anymore, because that is the definition of a one-man team. Bowen has carried Hull City, and Hull City just haven't had a good squad. I mean, when you've bought Tom Eaves from Gillingham in League One, you know you're going to have a struggle in this season, because he's not really been that good, Tom Eaves. They haven't really got the best players, Hull City. But Hull City against Sunderland, that was a Premier League fixture 4 years ago. 4 years later, it's going to be a League One fixture. That just shows you how quickly football changes in 4 years. I mean, 4 years ago, we had obviously a lot of things going on. Kylian Mbappe, no one had ever heard of him 4 years ago. He was just some spotty-faced teenager at Monaco, and now he's the best under-21 player on the planet. It's amazing how football changes, ladies and gentlemen. But that is going to wrap up the Chris Talks Football Podcast, episode number 34. The announcement I said I was going to make was the last episode number 35. Will be on Sunday, but it will be a live stream on YouTube. Join me at 3:45, where we will be taking a look at all the games, live reaction to all of the scores as soon as they go in. Hopefully my streaming software works that day. But yeah, hopefully you guys have enjoyed it. And if you did, drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I want as many subscribers as I can before the end of the year. We're trying to hit 50 by the end of the year. Hopefully you guys stay safe. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.